I'm Joe Reed, and this is Behind the Mic with AudioFile magazine. I have Alan Minskoff with me. He's been with me for the whole week, and we have been really kind of all over the map. So, what are you going to talk about today?
Well, we are going to talk about the brilliant Oliver Sacks and how he communicated in
Oh,
letters. But before we even get to Oliver Sacks, I do need to give a tip of the hat to James Langton. He is a fine reader, and he's reading an Englishman, and he of course is an Englishman, and this whole Britishness runs through this recording of Sacks's voluminous letters.
and Langton is done, he reads history, fantasy, mystery. He has such a broad net. He really is a very, very talented narrator.
Well, it's a great duo with Langton and Sachs because Sachs was, of course, brilliant, and he also traveled. He seemed like he never slept because he was writing all the time, researching all the time, seeing patients, traveling the world. It's a fascinating listen, really.
And I read a review of this in the New York Times by Dwight Garner, who thought the first third was some of the best writing he's read all year.
He's right. I think the first part is so engaging, and it's him getting set in America and traveling the continent and coming from California to New York, where, of course, he ultimately settled, and introducing that whole idea that underpinned Awakenings of this work that he did with Parkinson's patients. Fascinating stuff.
Yeah, it's like we got to know the young Oliver
Right. And
Sacks.
also the brilliant young and the motorcycle
Yeah,
riding, the
I
weightlifter.
know.
Such a fascinating
I
man.
know. It's
Exactly.
really great. Yeah. No, that was really wonderful.
But that said, I think Dwight Garner agrees with me that some of the letters could have needed a little more editing as we go on. Some of them are very long. So it should be said that Sachs was a prodigious reader as well as tireless researcher and a clinician. He's a man of real parts. And what's interesting is that the people that he writes to, he knows some of the most famous people who've ever lived, and yet some of the most interesting letters are to his parents and his relatives.
Well, why don't we hear a little bit?
Let's do it. This is one of the first letters in the entire collection.
All right. This is Letters by Oliver Sacks. And we should say Kate Edgar is the editor, and it's read by James Langton.
Dear Ma and Pa, and of course Auntie Len, finding myself with a lull and with a typewriter, I am sitting down to write you a long and overdue letter. I last wrote you, I believe, from Toronto, though I have sent a couple of postcards since. From Toronto I flew to Calgary, going over the prairies at night. We touched down at Winnipeg and at Regina, where I snuffed the prairie air. There was no time for anything else. In Toronto the air is humid and smells of frenzy, sweat and gasoline. In the prairies it is dry and warm and aromatic and smells of cinnamon and roasted buckwheat, as if the door of some gigantic oven had been opened.
Oh, this writing is so rich.
It really is.
Oh, so rich and expertly read. Did James get in earphones?
I don't think he did.
Oh, too bad. Because it goes on for quite some time, doesn't it?
I think this may be why I didn't get an earphones because it is, let's go take a look. I think it's 28 and a half hours. And that
Wow.
takes a kind of stick-to-itiveness that not every listener is going to have. I really think it should have been cut.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why it's not quite worthy. But the best writing is simply remarkable. And I think had it gone on for 16 or 18 hours, but having listened to the whole thing, and I'm dogged
Yeah.
about this stuff, I did come out of it saying, they could have used a little scalpel.
But the first third, as Dwight Gardner said, and you agree, some of the best writing he's heard all year.
You could listen to the first half and be very, very
Okay.
satisfied.
We're talking about Letters by Oliver Sacks, edited by Kate Edgar and read by James Langton, with sort of a bit of a foreword by Kate Edgar. I think that's fair to say. If you like Behind the Mic, leave us a rating. And then don't forget to follow us. And that way we'll just show up in your feed on the platform of your choice. I'm Joe Reed, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.